Welcome in, and welcome back to Hybrid Studios and the Coliseum. My name is Logan Hyder. I appreciate you for being here. Over the weekend, we had some college football action that was a little bit more exciting than I think a lot of people expected. We had some good performances. We had some bad performances. We had some upsets. We have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about all of that and much more, including a look ahead at week 3 of college football action, and in particular, the Tennessee-Georgia game, which will be going on in Knoxville at Neyland Stadium this coming weekend. So without further ado, welcome back in, as I said, and let's get right to it. Okay, so the first thing that I want to start out by saying, a little bit of housekeeping here. I'm going to be trying some different things whenever it comes to media, showing you guys different videos, different posts that I come across through the week in between making videos. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to have all of that set up, or exactly how I'm going to be doing that in post and that kind of thing as I'm filming. So if I do have some technical difficulties, or if you guys prefer one version or one type of media over another one, please let me know. Please give me feedback and bear with me as we work through figuring that out. With that being said, today we do have some different Instagram posts pulled up, and tomorrow our NFL recap and look ahead video. I have a bunch of different X posts and Instagram posts pulled up for that as well too. So we're going to be walking through all of that today as we talk through the different games that happened over the weekend, and again, some of the more exciting ones coming up, like the Tennessee-Georgia game. And with that, we're going to start there. I was actually in Knoxville at the game over the weekend. I had an unbelievable time trying to find my seats. 2 hours, 3 different people that worked at Neyland, 2 quarters, lots of touchdowns. We were late getting in there. It was kind of a disaster, to be honest with you, so we won't talk about that. But the point being is that Tennessee beat an obviously hapless ETSU team whenever it comes to being able to compete on the same level as Tennessee on the field. Tennessee scoring over 70 points, something that you do like to see. It reminded me a lot of the game last year with Chattanooga, where you have an in-state team that, you know, isn't really designed to be there to compete, but it is designed to work on different things schematically, offensively, defensively, and just, you know, get some guys some playing time and that kind of thing. But what is a little bit different about it and a little bit odd is that there is a huge game next week there in Neyland, which is against Georgia, as we mentioned before. So I've never actually seen Tennessee play Georgia that early in the season. It's a little bit odd to see, and we'll come back to that in just a second. But obviously, you're hoping that we're not looking too far ahead and there's nothing crazy that happens with the ETSU game. So glad to see that. The first couple posts that I want to bring up is, yes, Nico Iamaleava. That's embarrassing. Nico Iamaleava. Yes, I am going to be talking about him. I mean, the guy was my quarterback 6 months ago, and he left and is now 0-2 with a couple embarrassing performances. And yeah, I'm going to point and laugh, and don't give me the whole he's a kid thing. First of all, he's not. He's a grown man. And he certainly wants to be treated like somebody who's worthy of making decisions on his own and being a big boy. So he can certainly be pointed at whenever the performances aren't exactly what he advertised himself to be. Let's say that. So bringing up these first couple things we're going to go over here across the way, all the way across the country. Nico played in his second game. The Bruins fall to 0-2 against UNLV. The first time that I checked the score on this, UNLV was up by 17. His final stat line here, 29 for 41, 255, a passing touchdown, 11 carries, 59 yards, and a rushing touchdown. So over 300 all-purpose yards, albeit against UNLV, but over 300 all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns. You made 29 for 41 even isn't terrible, terribly inefficient or anything like that. Let's look at a couple of these plays. It's a hell of a check down to start out with here. Just an incredible ball to a wide open receiver. But this right here is legitimately impressive. I mean, I've never seen somebody run this fast and their head just doesn't move. It's crazy. But in all seriousness, this is, I mean, he's athletic to some degree. He's really not very fast. He's quicker than fast. But this is what I want to bring your attention to. So at the bottom of the screen, you can see 13-30 in the fourth quarter. So we see that pretty clearly there. So that's what a 17-point advantage for UNLV. But anyways, this is what I want to bring your attention to. At the end of the game, Nico had a chance to tie the game. They were down by 7. They get the ball back, and this is what happened. Looking over the middle. Oh, that's one guy who could have picked it, and the second guy finishes it off. So, yeah, 7-point game, and you have... I guess he was going to number 7. This isn't like all 22 film. Obviously, I can't see if there was somebody behind him. But it appears that he was going to number 7. And, I mean, again, that should have been picked off right there. And then it is picked off there. So, yeah, so far, Joey Aguilar leading the Tennessee offense to a 2-0 record, 117 points. To be fair, Nico was sitting in that spot right there. To be fair, UCLA's schedule has been more difficult. As a Vols fan, I'm hoping this trend continues, but I have to throw in that fact. True. But they played UNLV, and I'm pretty sure the team that they played week 1, I don't even remember who it was, but it wasn't anybody impressive. In fact, let's look this up real quick. UCLA football versus week 1. Yeah, I mean, Utah is a ranked team, to be fair, but yeah, they lost by 33 points. So I do agree with that comment, and it's much like, again, when Nico was in this position last year on this graphic, and Tennessee had scored a ton of points early on in the season, but hadn't really played anybody yet. It's very similar to that. It doesn't mean a ton, but it's also hard not to look at and laugh whenever you are a Tennessee fan. So that is the Tennessee and the UCLA and Nico things that I wanted to bring up. The other post that I keep accidentally clicking on that just keeps cracking me up is, you may think, well, first of all, Nico played well enough to where obviously you're not going to replace the kid. And they're not going to replace him anyway. They brought him there and lost Joey Aguilar as a result. And Nico's going to play clearly, but let's say for some reason you did want to replace him, or, he gets hurt or something like that, and obviously wouldn't wish that on him, but it happens. And let's see who you got to replace him. Oh, yikes. So in case you weren't watching at this exact second, UCLA backup quarterback Pierce Clarkson, good Lord, I can't read. UCLA backup quarterback Pierce Clarkson was arrested on an unspecified felony charge, which is kind of strange. Which on this last slide, you get a source that tells you that it was a deadly weapon felony, a source that he may have been arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, a felony, and that the incident may have been possible domestic violence. So UCLA's quarterback room not looking great, and they start out 0-2. So, with that being said, we go to another team. Well, let's stick to the Tennessee team for now. So, Tennessee will be without Jermon McCoy and Ricky Gibson versus Georgia. This brings me to the Tennessee-Georgia game overall. I really don't think that we know much about Tennessee at this point. I mentioned this last week. I don't have overly high expectations for this team, and nothing about them so far has impressed me overly or caused me a ton of concern either, although I do go back to what I said last week. After the first quarter, after Tennessee went up 17-0 against Syracuse, that game was a 28-26 game, and I don't like to see that against a Syracuse team, right? And there was a few times, even in the ETSU game, where Tennessee was stopped, and it's like, well, they scored 72 points. I get it, but there was more times than you would like against ETSU where we rushed up the middle and just were blanked in situations where it was a third down or a conversion situation. Also in the red zone, and there's one of them that I'm thinking about in particular where it just got blown up. And listen, it can happen, but we're not talking about the NFL where on any given Sunday, these are all NFL athletes at the end of the day. ETSU and Tennessee, you should really be able to enforce your will, and the fact that we're not able to do that, I don't think is a great sign going into this Georgia game. Tennessee will again be without its two starting corners against Georgia this week as Beautremont, McCoy, and Ricky Gibson. McCoy is still recovering from an ACL tear in January, so that's not really surprising. I mean, I don't know how I didn't know that, but I don't know how he would be back if he tore it in January. And then Ricky Gibson, undisclosed, is out for an extended period of time. So not exactly good news. I will say Colton Hood, Ty Redmond, I don't particularly remember off the top of my head, but Colton Hood, from the first couple of games this year so far, I believe he's a true freshman. That kid is nasty. That kid is flying around all over the field, number 8. So I like him a lot. Moving on. Oh, well, I keep saying moving on, and I keep forgetting to make some kind of prediction on this game. Probably because I really don't know. I've been thinking about it back and forth, and I cannot figure out. I mean, listen, I told my wife last night I wouldn't be surprised if we won. I wouldn't be surprised if we got blown out. And I know that sounds strange, but I don't think you know a whole lot about this team right now. The offense, generally speaking, and I think this is probably a good time to talk about it. This will be one of the biggest games that Tennessee plays this year, so might as well do a little bit deeper of a dive on it than I normally would. But I have a couple issues with Josh Heupel. I love Josh Heupel in a lot of different ways, but I have a few issues with him. And one of them is what I feel like is a trend going all the way back to the South Carolina game when Hendon Hooker blew his knee out and 70 points were put up on our defense by Spencer Rattler. In that game, it was not the first time, but it was the point that I remember thinking that this is a pattern, not a problem. And I remember talking to my dad about it and saying that Josh Heupel's team, at least his Tennessee team, I would have to go back and look at his UCF teams and see if maybe they did the same thing. But Josh Heupel's teams at Tennessee have a problem with going on the road against unranked teams. I would have to go back and look at UCF whenever Josh Heupel was there, and maybe he had an issue with this there too. It'd actually be pretty interesting to see. But at Tennessee, at the very least, Josh Heupel has a pretty severe issue, in my opinion, of his teams not showing up specifically for one game a year, at least one game a year, where they are playing an unranked team on the road. They just come out flat, offense, defense, and most of the time they just lose or get blown out even. This happened last year against Arkansas. It happened in that game against South Carolina with Hendon Hooker. It happened with Joe Milton whenever we went to the Florida game at Florida against an unranked Florida. It's happened several times. And it's not just that we lose road games, for example, that he has an issue with winning on the road. It's not just the road game thing that's the problem. It's always against an unranked team. It's always a road game, and it's not just that they, lose one of those games per year, which is bad, by the way. But it is that they come out flat and they come out lifeless and they come out unmotivated and seemingly like they just don't even, like they're unaware that they are playing, an important game. Like that Hendon Hooker game in South Carolina, they had everything to play for. Heisman Trophy for Hendon, college football playoff spot, and you wouldn't have been able to tell that by what was going on the field. So this brings me to another overall point about Josh Heupel at Tennessee that I would like to make a full video on sooner rather than later. But I think that it can be best summed up actually by looking at that Tennessee and Georgia matchup. A game that has produced a lot of really, really cool highlights over the years. Juwan Jennings' catch comes to mind, for example. But when you look at Georgia, Kirby Smart is the guy who got them over the hill, who got them to where they are at this exact second. But that was built for a very long time by Mark Richt. And if you're a Georgia fan, obviously in the comments, you can confirm this, that Mark Richt is the guy that a lot of people associated with Georgia football for a very, very long time. He coached there for a very, very long time and was very, very successful. I was talking to my wife about this last night, that I wanted to make sure I talked about this in the video because it's actually exactly what I think is going on with Josh Heupel and what will continue to play out with Josh Heupel, which is that just like Mark Richt, for those who don't know, was there for a long time, like I said, very, very successful, but just could not win a national championship specifically. I mean, they would have different versions of debacles each year and then just could not get to the national championship and win the national championship with Mark Richt there. But it was one of those weird things where you were just good enough and you were, in fact, very, very good, but you just couldn't do that, right? So we got a lot of this going on in the NFL right now with the Bills and the Ravens, for example, but Georgia had that situation going on for a very, very long time with a legendary coach. And eventually, they decided that they were going to move on. Kirby Smart became that guy, and I believe in his second year, he won the national championship and kind of proved the entire thing right, validated that pretty quickly, right? So I think that Tennessee is in somewhat of a similar position whenever it comes to Josh Heupel. I think that Josh Heupel is Mark Richt-esque in that way, and in the way that Tennessee is so desperate for a winner, and Tennessee is so desperate to have a guy that gets them to a 9 and 10 win consistency, that they will accept him for possibly far longer than he should be around, given his obvious flaws and some of the ways that we're talking about right now. And overall, that becomes, again, a kind of a catch-22 because you have a situation where you're winning a lot of games and you have a coach that you like. It's not like I dislike him, but he's just winning a lot. No, I mean, they win and I like him. But the problem being that at what point are you competing for national championships and at what point are you just competing just to be relevant? Tennessee fans will tell you that you definitely want to get back to the promised land eventually, and no matter who you are, if you can't get us there, I think that most Tennessee fans would agree with me that that's a problem, whether that guy's name is Josh Heupel or not. And so I say all that to say that I think that Josh Heupel has some schematic issues. Again, I would love to do a deep dive on this. He has some schematic issues. I don't love the way that the offense can't seem to get going against teams that have really, really good athletes. Again, would love to give a really, really deep dive on this at some point, but it's kind of a strange thing because it's almost like you have this offense that's set up to be schematically better than the other team, which should hypothetically overcome any kind of talent issues that you have or should help with that. And it does in a lot of cases. And they destroy teams that they're better than, right? So the ETSU spread was 39.5. Smashed it. Last year, whenever it was Chattanooga, I think it was exactly the same thing. think, 39.5. Smashed it. Because they're going to kill teams that can't line up with them and don't have the talent. But when you get a team that can line up with them, has superior talent, and by line up with them, I mean schematically, you're going to have a lot of issues. And that has just played out very, very predictably with Josh Heupel over the last few years. And so I worry about his long-term ability to stay around, his long-term ability to be somebody who Tennessee fans trust, to go from, yes, where we were completely irrelevant and had some of the worst, years of Tennessee football for the entire program's history over the last 10 to 15 years. But at what point does Heupel just not get you to that next step, just doesn't win those big games? And so this Saturday would be a huge step forward in that. They've beaten Alabama in that building before. He has some wins that you really look at as like maybe they can do it. So this would be on par with that Alabama win. And if you can start out 3-0, especially if you do it impressively against Georgia, I mean, the sky's the limit. But 2 of our starting corners out, don't love that. And again, you just don't really have a whole lot of answers after a couple of weeks. So we will see. Moving on to Florida, another team that I'm going to love to hate on here. So this is the final score, as you can see from the other night. That would be 18 for South Florida. That would be 16 for Florida. This is South Florida's second straight win over a ranked team. You would probably remember the first game of the football season in general, being that Boise State game where they looked like they had no clue what they were doing, without Ashton Genty. But last week, South Florida goes into Florida, into the swamp. Thinking about it now, that's not as much of an away game as you would think, considering they're both in Florida. But obviously, it's still a pretty intimidating environment. And they beat Florida on a walk-off field goal, which is awesome. I have this post pulled up. I haven't even looked at all of this yet, so we'll look at it together here in just a second. But one thing that I did want to bring up about the South Florida team is that they now play Miami at Miami. So they're ranked 18th now. Miami is 5th, and they're going to be playing at Miami, and that should be a pretty interesting game. But while we're here real quick, before I forget, there's this woman, right? This is from a few years ago when South Florida started 6-0, but there's this woman, and she is literally a voter, okay? She's an AP voter, and she literally votes on, which teams are going to be ranked where. Apparently, a lot of people do. I'm going to have to look into that as well, because this shit right here is unhinged. This is her explanation, okay, for why this South Florida team right here, okay, that just beat this team right here, Florida. Yeah, this woman here, she just went ahead and moved Florida up 2 spots. Yeah, no, this is after they played. Is what you're probably thinking, like, well, this is after they played. It moved Florida up 2 spots after South Florida's loss. So that she explains the answer here, but just so you know before I play this, Florida is up 2 spots, and South Florida is still unranked in her personal AP poll submission. So yeah, again, we're working on the media here, so I'm gonna play this, and I think I figured out how I'm gonna do this, but let's see what we got here.
Like, no matter who you pick, it does even out because there's so many people who vote. And like I said, it's really fun for discussion. It doesn't, probably matter in the end, but I'm glad that people are having a really good time with it. But as far as what my votes are and what my process is, I wake up early in the morning after covering a game late in the night before. Don't want to go too much into my process or logic, but I will say I appreciate everybody's interaction on social media and all of your feedback. There's tons of people that vote on the AP poll, and it's not a perfect system. So
this is crazy. Take her vote. I would 100% agree with that, first of all. So anyways, yeah, that woman doesn't deserve a vote. I don't understand how you even end up in that position, and thank God that there's other things to prevent that from actually affecting anything. I don't know how much it does or doesn't, but yeah, so let's talk about the fact that Florida is who lost here, okay, because that's what I'm really excited about. So Florida and DJ, I almost called him, I almost read that out loud, but DJ Lagway, okay. DJ Lagway was on a special edition cover of College Football 26 over the summer with Tim Tebow. Okay, Tim Tebow. So not really a big fan of him, not really his fault, but he is your classic, and you guys will learn this about me, that I'm not a fan of these type of players. He's your classic overrated player, overhyped player, in my opinion, coming into the season. And boy, did it not take very long to prove that right. So let's go. That is pretty funny with it. So again, South Florida beats them. Like I said, well, we have that. Yeah, obviously not. But anyways, point being, South Florida beats Florida. Yeah, and it's funny because we also talked about DJ ucLa. We talked about him last week because I couldn't pronounce his fucking name then either. I usually don't have that problem, but yeah, it's crazy. Oh, so just basically the whole thing is just that he's DJ, right? Well, anyways, yeah, they're both of their names are DJ. I guess that's the joke. But it is pretty damn funny that that Florida lost to UCF. Let's look this up real quick and see some of the stats, perhaps. I'll be playing some of the highlights over this as I'm looking at it, but let's go ahead and read through some of that real quick. We got DJ Lagway, Big DJ, Big Tim Tebow, the next great one. 23 for 33, 222, 1 touchdown, and a pick. Okie dokie. Surely, though, the team stats are 391 to 355. Okay. 263 to 222. All right. Let's go third down efficiency, 4 for 12. Ooh. Yeah, that's Tim Tebow-esque if I've ever fucking seen it, eh? 11 penalties for 103 yards. Well, first of all, that's coaching, and that actually does bring me to the other thing I was going to say. Just a little funny little story time. The head coach for Florida's name is Billy Napier, and he's actually the cousin of a guy that I grew up going to Tennessee games with. True story. And Billy Napier got booed off the field the other day after this game, and I mean, honestly, I got 11 for 103. We're going to talk about this in the Titans game tomorrow with Brian Callahan. There's no excuse for over 100 yards and penalties. College, NFL, anywhere. And it also always comes back, in my opinion, pretty much exclusively to the coach. Looking at Byron Brown, by the way, while I'm looking through this, 23 for 30. We got the rest of DJ Lagway's stats. I was scrolling through there to see if he had a bunch of rushing yards, but he was 6 for 9, or 6 attempts for 9 yards. And then you got Byron Brown for South Florida, 23 for 36, 263, a touchdown, and then 17 carries for 66 yards. So well over 300 all-purpose yards, a touchdown. Did not turn the ball over that I see here. Meanwhile, Lagway contributed in the passing game, almost nothing in the running game, only 1 touchdown, and did turn the ball over and ultimately lost. So, yeah, not a good showing for him. A great showing for Tennessee last week. Not a good showing for Nico as well. So great football to be seen if you are a Tennessee fan pretty much all the way around. And if you include Alabama losing and getting their shit rocked week 1 by Florida State, really just all around a great time to be a Tennessee Vol. Didn't really expect this episode to be so Tennessee heavy. While we're here, let's look through and see, make sure there wasn't anything else in week 2 that we really wanted to talk about here at the end. Any rapid fire stuff. Oklahoma beat Michigan, which we bet on, and that went the way that we thought. LSU 23-7 against Louisiana Tech. I'm not overly impressed. Week 1, I said I was very impressed with LSU, and I was, but 23-7 is a little bit strange. Almost to the point of being concerning, especially whenever you have people talking about how they are the best team in football. Oh, this reminds me, yes, Oregon and Oklahoma State. So I'm not sure at all what was said or what happened in this game, this Oregon-Oklahoma State game here. But what I do know is that apparently Mike Gundy for Oklahoma State, the head coach, and if you don't know about Mike Gundy, he talks a lot of shit. Every single time that Tennessee has a job opening, he pretends like he's interested, pretends like he would be available for it, etc. And then he doesn't take it, and he just uses it as an opportunity to flip into an extension at Oklahoma State. He does it every single time. So he does that to Tennessee, so we're not a huge fan of him after having that done 3 times. And apparently he was talking shit about Oregon and how much they paid for their players, and then they got a fucking final score of 69-3 hung on them. That's Oklahoma State is not UNLV, like we were talking about with Nico. Oklahoma State is not a D2 school. You're talking about a program that once housed Barry Sanders in the backfield, for example. Lots of NFL players there. Justin Blackman, back in the day, is a hell of a pull by me, I'm not going to lie, who won the Biletnikoff. 69-3 is embarrassing. Straight up, that is embarrassing. So, that I definitely did want to mention as well. So I'm glad that I got in there. But we talked about Josh Heupel and Mark Richt and some of the similarities that I see between them, some of the issues that I have with Josh Heupel and some of his offensive, some of the ways that his offense in particular runs. Although I will add that, as I said last week, running the game and the defensive stuff for Tennessee, the defensive success for Tennessee is something that I think gets overlooked quite a bit. But generally speaking, that is it for college football week 2. I wanted to talk about that Tennessee-Georgia matchup as well. Officially, I will predict we're going to go with a 7-point win by Tennessee at home in Neyland. Go Vols. That is all we got for you today. Come back tomorrow for NFL recap and a look ahead at next week and a special deep look at the Titans, just like we did with the Vols today. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, and we will see you next time. Thank you.